How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Could you give me some idea?
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying hate, of facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final night. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
that Adolf Hitler made that he records for himself in the first chapters of Mein Kampf, which I have bothered to read more than once. Not in the, I don't speak German, so I didn't read it in German, but I have read it, and he's very clear that he's fighting with the Marxists. He's fighting with the Marxists. He's fighting with the Marxists. He can't stand the Marxists. You argue with them, they lie. The Marxist press prints nothing but lies, and the rest of the media goes along. He yells at them till his voice goes hoarse, drinks his bottle of milk, and comes back and yells at them some more. He's got all these rants about the Marxists. And then he says that one day he finally realized something interesting about them. All the Marxists, all the Social Democrats, which is what the Bolsheviks called their party, was the Social Democrat Party, all of them were Jewish.
Isn't that funny? Isn't that a funny coincidence? Hey guys, welcome to Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to our traditional happy hour stream. Now, you guys are going to have to excuse me because I'm sitting back in my chair today. Normally, I'm leaning forward, so it might seem like I'm more frame. But you know what? I am old AF, and my back is killing me. It is killing me. I'm having one of those moments where I'm like, I am not a young person anymore. And it's just the way it goes, I suppose. So I'm sitting back in my chair today, giving my back. Yeah, I know, I'm only 29. Yeah, I'm feeling 29 today. I'll tell you what, I'm definitely feeling 29 today. So, some fun news. Well, we have to do our typical James update before we get started because, so I've got a bunch of queer videos pulled up today for happy hour. I've got a bunch of fun stuff that we're going to watch, just a whole bunch of like a mishmash of stuff. I found this video literally got uploaded like 15 minutes ago or something. This video got uploaded 1 hour ago. 1 hour ago. We're going to watch Your Next Rabbi Will Probably Be Queer, the evolving face of conservative Judaism. Okay. We're going to see what that has to say. And if you look at the person giving the presentation, yeah, that person looks queer. That person looks queer to me. That person looks queer. So we're going to see what Beth Ann has to say. Then we're going to watch this music video called Queer as in Fuck You, which I just think is just really indicative of queer ideology based on the little bit that I've seen of it. We're going to watch this video, The Long Queer History of Punk. because as you guys know, I'm currently, like, one of the projects that I'm working on is I want to do a definitive history, like an anti-communist history of the development of queer ideology. And what we have kind of figured out is that at some point queer ideology co-opted punk, and that is where a lot of queer ideology developed in the punk community. These are the queer narco subcultures that I keep referencing back to. So I found a video specifically on that topic, so I want to watch that. And then I found this video, Queer History, Politics, and Reclamation. I don't know who this Ashton person is, but they definitely look queer to me, and they put together a video essay talking about their point of view. They got rainbow shit everywhere. So we're going to talk about that. Those are the 4 videos that I've got pulled up to watch today. Just a little bit of a mishmash for happy hour. I've got some beer down here too. You guys are going to be able to vote on beer in a moment. But before we get into the official show, we do, of course, need to do an official James update. Because per usual, where do I want to start? Per usual, James is losing his mind about something. And today's update is just so beautiful. It's just like we have reached peak Orwellian in regards to James. It's just crazy. So this guy named Ian Carroll makes videos where he like breaks down different so-called conspiracy theories, and his videos are okay. I've seen a couple of them. I actually really liked his video on the Las Vegas shooter because I didn't know a lot of the stuff in his video on the Las Vegas shooter, and that was crazy. If you ever have time and you want to go listen to Ian Carroll's video about the Las Vegas shooter, like that was some stuff. But Ian Carroll had a big victory yesterday because he basically had the biggest ratio on Elon Musk in history. So Ian Carroll basically replied to Elon Musk and was like, bro, I'm kind of surprised you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to the topic of like Israel. And Elon Musk responded to him, and Elon Musk was like, what don't I know? And then Ian Carroll wrote a whole, like a big long post basically saying, you don't know this, you don't know that, you don't know that other thing, do you know about this thing, do you know about that thing? And it was just like, and this is all stuff that he's talked about in his videos before, so he has receipts and documentation for all of this. This is not just Ian Carroll kind of like shooting from the hip. This is like, he has receipts and documentation for everything he says. That's one of the reasons I actually do appreciate him, is he does bring the evidence, which is something that I'm always demanding. And so he not only had that long post, and that long post got 10 times the likes that Elon Musk posts got. It's like one of the biggest ratios that has ever happened to Elon Musk, which is kind of crazy. So essentially that means it's getting a lot of attention. Of course, because Ian Carroll was getting a lot of attention for talking about topics that James Lindsay doesn't want people talking about. It's EINCARROLL. His handle is Ian Carroll Show. So because this was a topic James didn't want people talking about, of course, he has to weigh in and he has to call Ian Carroll a member of the woke right. And he says, woke right isn't going to stay small for long. Well, okay, James. But then this is like the greatest thing that's ever happened. Ian Carroll responded to James earlier today and said, but you didn't call me a liar, James, because James didn't bother to debunk any of the things that Ian Carroll actually said, which is usual for James. We've seen him do that a million times. And then James responds. And this is like the greatest response that we've ever seen from James. This is a peak James Lindsay jumping the shark moment. Oh, you're definitely a liar. You just lie with curated truth. Curated truth. You lie with curated truth. Can we just take a moment with that? Curated truth. That's an odd term, isn't it? Has anyone ever heard that term used before? You think it sounds very Jewish? Well, it's interesting you say that, Chad. And I didn't come up with this, but a friend texted me. a friend that I know of that looks into these sort of things, he texted me these screenshots. The Hebrew word for curated truth is this. I don't know what any of that means, but it's that. And then wouldn't you know it, in Israel, there was a spike for the term curated truth just a couple of days ago. Doesn't that seem like a weird coincidence? That all of a sudden there is a spike for this term, this very specific and very odd term, curated truth, in Israel. And then all of a sudden, James Lindsay, who has never used that term before, because I absolutely would have dragged his ass if I had ever seen him using that term. All of a sudden, after this term spikes for searches in Israel, James starts telling people that are saying things that perhaps people in Israel wouldn't like, that they are lying with curated truth. It kind of sounds like someone got his talking points and he got them from somewhere, doesn't it? Doesn't it? But then that wasn't even the only thing, because James also doubled down. Because Ian Carroll kept responding to James, and then James says, this is an example of curated truth being used to tell a lie. Let me make that a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. This is an example of a curated truth that is being used to tell a lie. Is anyone actually buying this? Like, does James think that he's fooling people? Is this going to become a new thing on the classical liberal, in the classical liberal so-called anti-woke movement, but they're not anti-woke at all. They're completely and totally woke. Are they going to run around saying that every time someone tells the truth, but they don't like the truth, that is a curated truth? Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Now, James himself certainly has some experience with curated truth. And I'm going to give an example of that right now, because just before this stream, I was scrolling on James Lindsay's timeline. You can see we're just on his current timeline right now. I'll even refresh it so you can see it's current. And I was like, okay, has James said anything stupid that I need to be aware of in the last couple hours? Because I was doing something else. And so I scrolled on his time. Oh, look! Oh my God, James's friends are, this is brand new, 3 minutes. James's friends are already starting to use the term curated truth. Wait a second. What is this? So Benjamin Boyce is calling James out on this term. You either die a rational liberal or live long enough to deploy postmodern relativism to legitimize your friends and delegitimize your enemies. Hey, maybe Benjamin Boyce is getting back on the intellectually honest bandwagon. Maybe that's happening. So Benjamin Boyce calls James out. And this person here is first of all, this person here is Jewish. I know for a fact this person is Jewish. Do they have it in their profile for some? No. This person 100% Jewish. This person is also one of James Lindsay's like the people that he retweets all the time. The woke always curate kernels of truth while peddling in a massive boatload of pernicious lies. So here's the new talking point, guys. The woke left is curating truth, and the woke right is curating truth as well. But we, as the classical liberals, we are the arbiters of what the real truth is. We're not curating truth. We would never do that. It's only every single person that we disagree with on any topic that's doing that. And even if those people that we disagree with are presenting something that is factually based, that is just objective truth, then we can say that they are curating the truth. Because they're the ones that do that. Because they're saying things we don't like. Well, someone can claim to be a Christian and also be ethnically Jewish, is what I'm saying. I'm just saying that is actually possible. It's happened on more than one occasion. Anyway, not that it matters that anyone's Jewish. Obviously, that doesn't matter at all. I don't even know why I said it. So isn't that interesting? But that's not actually what I wanted to show you guys about James's timeline. Let's just go back to it. Scrolling down James's timeline. Scrolling down James's timeline. Oh, he's been tweeting a lot in the last several minutes. Oh, wait, what's this? 33 minutes ago, James retweeted Poetry Painter. Let's talk about curating truth for a second, shall we? So Poetry Painter is the 500-pound grotesque human shut-in that has been stalking me literally for years. Poetry Painter does not go a single day in her sad, pathetic life without thinking about me because she is grotesquely overweight and doesn't leave her house. And I'm not making any of this up. I know exactly who Poetry Painter is because she's been stalking me for 4 years. So you learn a thing or two. Sadly, wish I didn't, but here we are. So Poetry Painter likes to tweet about me every single day. And James Lindsay, because he's an intellectually dishonest douchebag with no self-awareness at all, oftentimes retweets the things that Poetry Painter posts, even though she's a low IQ, unhinged retard. So today, Poetry Painter decided to do this. These are 2 posts that I made today. The first was commenting on Benny Johnson interviewing Andrew Tate. Now, I don't like Andrew Tate. I think it's gross how much all of these conservative shills are sucking up to Andrew Tate. I think Andrew Tate is actually a dangerous person to align with. I would never get within 500 feet of 500 yards even, of Andrew Tate. I would never get close to the guy. Would never speak to him, would never be on anything involving him, because he is a raging narcissist, like a real one, and so's his brother, and I don't want anything to do with them. Anyway, so all the conservative influencers love Andrew Tate, though, because he gets a lot of views. And they look past all the values that they claim to have to platform this guy that literally made millions of dollars as a pimp. A good conservative man, a pimp, a literal fucking pimp. So I responded, and I said, Andrew Tate is a jackass that should not be held up as a role model for anyone, but let him talk and prove that. You know? The more Andrew Tate talks, the more he gets himself in trouble. So let him talk. I don't really care. So Poetry Painter says, I'm saying to give Andrew Tate a platform. No, I'm not. I'm saying that anyone can interview anyone they want. But again, Poetry Painter is not the brightest crayon in the box, and so she's going to twist things however she does to conform to her ridiculous view of the world. Later today, I responded to someone who said, if everyone just blocked James Lindsay, it would improve the app exponentially. And I said, yeah, that's probably true. And then Poetry Painter says, everyone should block him, though. There's a couple things that are funny about this. When James Lindsay is whining all morning about curated truth, curated truth, curated truth. Couple funny things. Number one, the person that James Lindsay is retweeting seems to be curating truth, because I never argued to give Andrew Tate a platform. I just said he shouldn't be silenced. I also don't think that there's anything wrong with blocking a person, because that's actually free association. That's not censorship. So let's talk about curating truth. One person is curating a truth claiming Carlin is saying to censor people and to cancel them. And I'm saying, nah, bro, let him talk. But if I don't want to hear it, I don't want to hear it. That seems like a curated truth to me. But another curated truth is this. We have James Lindsay documented telling his audience to block me, to block Reagan, to block all the people in my community. James Lindsay literally has tweeted out to his 500,000 followers, explicitly telling them to block me and block Reagan and block members of my community. And actually, let me just get up the proof of that. Let's go over to the old Better Discourses Substack, because better, of course, is always preferable to new. And let's do a search. James debate. Let's go into this article here. In this article, I have a whole bunch of receipts. And one of the receipts that I have somewhere, I thought I had this. I could have sworn I had this. Do I not have this in this article? No, for real? Do I not have this? I thought I did. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is right here. Here it is. Here it is. You can see Reagan's Twitter account. Reagan is posting the correct definition of queer. Isn't saying anything mean, isn't saying anything bad. James retweets Reagan. This bullshit is tedious. It's also coordinated and bait. Block as enthusiastically as I do when you see it. So it seems to me that James is perfectly fine telling his people, telling his 500,000 followers to block members of my audience and my community simply for committing the crime of correctly defining queer. Perfectly fine, block as enthusiastically as I do when you see it. But seems to be a little less fine when I agree with someone that says, if everyone just blocked James Lindsay, that would improve things immeasurably. So does anyone want to talk about curated truth yet? Because that, to me, seems to be a little bit of curated truth. So James Lindsay is continuing on his downward spiral. And, you know, we're here living for it. We're just watching it. I'm just eating popcorn at this point. I don't even need to do anything else. All I need to do is watch the downward spiral happen and then continue to do my primary job, which is talking about the left, which is another thing that I've been working on, and I want to tell you guys about it. So yesterday, during yesterday's stream, where we were watching that incredibly boring conversation that Benjamin Boyce had on his channel about the woke right, I kind of started thinking about it because the people on Benjamin Boyce's channel were going into this long pontification about all these different terms and stuff like that. And I was thinking about it and I was like, I wonder what the actual origin of the term racism is. I wonder who was the first to say the term racism. I wonder how the definition of racism evolved from its inception to where it is today. And so I just started thinking about that and I was like, I wonder if I can find that information out. So ChatGPT and I spent some time together last night. ChatGPT and I were together until the wee hours of the morning. When ChatGPT literally had to cut me off, ChatGPT was like, no, Carlin, you can't use me anymore unless you pay me more money. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to bed. But we did make some really good progress last night on this question of what is the origin of the term racism. And so I've started it's a tiny little baby project. I'm just actually curious about this, and I feel like it aligns with a lot of the other things that I'm working on. So I'm okay with spending like a couple hours figuring this out. I basically now have a timeline of the development of the term, and I'm going to turn this into a little tiny little baby book that I'm going to publish. And so because I'm going to turn it into a book that I'm going to publish, I've got the draft chapters up on Red Menace Collective, which is redmenacecollective.substack.com. This is separate from the Better Discourses Substack, in that it's a premium Substack where you get to access all my book chapters for the copious amount of books that I'm working on right now, honestly, before they actually get published. And I know this is taking me off the project I should be working on, but it's actually just a really fascinating history, honestly, and it is directly relevant to what we're doing. And so I did put the first chapter up, called The Invention of Racism. Turns out the term racism was invented around 1902 by a guy that had a school for Indians where he was teaching Indians to assimilate to American culture, but essentially he was denouncing the evils of racism as a systemic problem. So it turns out the original use of the term racism actually did link back to this idea that racism was a systemic problem, that it wasn't about individualism, it was always about the system that was oppressing people. But that guy's solution was that Indians needed to assimilate with like American culture. So it wasn't like he was progressive at the time, but he wasn't like his idea, his solution was not a progressive solution. And then of course we've got Trotsky. Trotsky really kind of like was the first like to really push the term into the culture. So that's giving us a directly anti-capitalist origin. And then Magnus Hirschfeld, Magnus Hirschfeld was the guy that was running the Sexology Institute that the Nazis did the book burning at. He wrote a whole book about racism, and all of these people are basically, it sounds like systemic racism. That's the definition that they're using. It all comes from the radical revolutionary far left, except for the first guy who kind of used it in that way, but kind of didn't. But it all came from the far left. And guess what? It all came to demonize people on the right that had ideas that they didn't like. And so it actually is really a fascinating discussion. I'm trying to keep it very factually based, just saying this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. I may get a few funny shots in with some snide comments here and there because it's my book. I'll do what I want. But I do actually think this is going to be kind of cool. And after I do this one, I want to write the history of like gender theory and stuff like that. I see value in having a bunch of these different little books. We're talking like maybe 10,000 words. These are really, really short little documents that I just want to publish to have out there. And so it is interesting. And if you want to read that chapter, you can head over to redmenacecollective.substack.com, sign up as a member for $10 a month, $100 a year. You get access to all the draft chapters of my book before they actually become books. You can ask questions, you can make comments, you can ask me to cover certain things. That's all available over there. And that also does help to support the work I'm doing, which I really appreciate. Yeah, maybe we can even do a box set at some point. Can even do a whole volume. I also did think about turning it into a zine. I always have more ideas. Well, yeah, I think that that's true as well. Everyday therapist. I always have more ideas than I can implement. I'll tell you guys, I don't have a shortage of ideas. I have a shortage of time. That's my real problem. All right, guys, before we get into our videos, and again, the first video we're going to be watching is this video titled Your Next Rabbi Will Be Queer, which we're looking forward to that. Before we do that, I need some beer. Does anyone else need a beer? It's Friday. Hang on. It's so hard to like be able to move in a way that doesn't hurt my back. I'm so old. Okay. Here are the beer options that I have for today. Per my happy hour tradition, I went to the beer store and I got 4 beers, and you guys get to vote on which one I drink first, and I will be drinking that during the show today. The first one I bought mostly because of the can, because it looks really cool. This is from Kettlehead Brewing Company. I'm pretty sure they're out of New Hampshire. Pretty sure they're in New Hampshire. Pretty sure Franklin, New Hampshire. And I loved the can. I thought it looked really cool. And I was just kind of like, this is going to be like a beer. This is going to be like a beer flavored beer. So it's an American Amber Ale. And I just wanted to try it. So that's our first option, is our American Amber Ale. Our second option is going to be, this is from, where is it from? Beer Zombies Brewery. Oh, what a great name. Beer Zombies Brewery. Where are you at? Oh, no, it's Branch Blade. Okay, so this is a collaboration. Branch Blade is in Keene, New Hampshire. That's one of my favorite breweries. I really should reach out to them and get a sponsorship or something in collaboration. with beer zombies. And this is called Death is Hereditary. And this is a pastry stout. This is an imperial. This is 10% alcohol, so it's very alcoholic. It is a pastry stout with coconut and vanilla. So that is option number 2. Option number 3 for beer. Now, this is one of my favorite beers. This is also from Branch Blade Brewing. They really do some of my favorite beers, honestly. You guys should sponsor me. You really should. I love your beer, legitimately. But this is one of my favorite types of beer that they make, because this is basically a peanut butter and jelly beer. It's called the Fluffernutter Sour Ale, and this is one with raspberry, so it's going to taste like peanut butter. It's also going to taste like raspberry, so it's basically like PB&J. And these beers are always awesome. They have a whole bunch of different flavors. They have grape jelly. They've got like a double jelly thing, which is really kind of like savory. They're all just really good. So that is the next option. And the last option comes in a bottle. And that means it's my friends at Southern Tier. Southern Tier is a brewery out of New York that does some of the best beers. I think I love almost all their beers. I like to try all of them. These are the ones that brew Pumpkin, which is my favorite pumpkin beer every fall. And this is going to be Tiramisu. I've never had this one before. I'm looking forward to it. And this is also an imperial beer. This is 10% alcohol. So this one is really, really alcoholic. Now, Victor had one of these because I got 4 of them, because you have to buy 4 at a time. And he said he didn't like it. So I have to give it a try. I have to decide for myself. I do like tiramisu quite a bit, so I hope the beer lives up to the name. So guys, I'm going to put the poll in the chat over on YouTube for you guys to vote. Again, our options are, we've got our American Amber Ale out of the cool can. We've got Death by Hereditary, which is an imperial stout with vanilla and coconut. Or Death is Hereditary, excuse me. We've got our PB&J Sour. And we've got our tiramisu. Let me know which one you guys want me to drink. And in the meantime, I will set up the sound so we can learn by our next rabbi will be queer. We'll see what you guys have to say. Let's see what's winning. What is winning? Okay, last chance. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You guys just really want me to get drunk. Okay, tiramisu it is. Tiramisu it is. All right. You guys just want me to drink the alcoholic one. It's fine. It's fine. I need to find my bottle opener. It's somewhere on the desk. Hang on. All right. Well, then you should have voted. I can't help how many people vote. I can't control how many people choose to participate in the political process, Joshua. I can't control that. Let's see. No, we're not doing a revote. Everyone had their opportunity. Come on. If you lose, you lose. Sometimes the vote goes the way it goes. And that's just all there is. And so we're going to start with tiramisu. It's all good. Cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. I don't think this is bad. I think that Victor just doesn't like coffee beers. I think that's what it is. Because this does definitely taste like coffee. This actually, hang on. No, this is good. This actually, I'm definitely getting coffee. I'm definitely getting that like cream that they put in tiramisu. Yeah, this is good. Good, like Victor, I don't know what Victor is smoking, but it's not good. Anyway, we are watching a whole bunch of crazy queer videos today. I hope you guys play along with me. We are starting with a 40-minute video from the Beth Am Synagogue that was uploaded just an hour ago called Your Next Rabbi Will Probably Be Queer, the Evolving Face of Conservative Judaism.
I knew that I could be kicked out of my Orthodox Jewish day school. I knew that I could be disowned from my parents, removed from my synagogue, because that was just the reality of the time. Throughout the 80s and 90s, that was the reality. By the time I was in high school, Canada was bringing up the question of gay marriage. And so it became a bigger conversation in the Orthodox community as like a thought concept here in the States. I remember being in my halacha class, my Jewish law class. I went to an Orthodox girls' high school. I remember saying to my rabbi, Canada is about to vote on whether to allow gay marriage. When will we, as a Jewish community, begin to ask these questions? And my rabbi said to me, obviously I was closeted, he didn't know what he was saying, but he said, Naomi, there are no gay Jews. So, Naomi.
Isn't Israel like the most gay country in the world? Like, am I making that up?
There are no gay Jews. This is not an issue within Judaism. Oh, we're not going to have that kind of conversation. And I remember being like, I must have been 16 or 17, and I ran out of class and I went to the bathroom and I cried, though, because I couldn't see for myself how I was going to have a future within Judaism. Like, how could I have a future with God, let alone a congregation or my rabbis, if this was such like a so completely impossible to talk about. I found, though, that there are actually many different ways of being Orthodox, and there are many different kinds of Orthodox communities. So even though I had grown up in like a centrist yeshivish community, when I went to undergrad at the University of Michigan, I was able to be part of the Orthodox community there that was much more open, and I became the president of Ahava, which was the Jewish LGBT organization at Michigan, and also I was an active member of the Orthodox Minyan on campus. And for the longest time in my life, I thought that my personal mission was to bring about change within the Orthodox community and to make the community a more safe and accepting place for queer people like me, and to do it within the bounds of halacha, within the structures of Jewish law. Many things happened in my life, and through a series of positive events, I moved to Israel in, it doesn't matter what year it was, because now I can't remember, in 2011. In 2011, I moved to Israel, and I spent 3 years at the Pardes Institute for Jewish Studies. And I got my master's degree in Jewish education. Yes, that's what it's called. Master's in Jewish education. And I ended up becoming a Talmud teacher in a Jewish middle school in the United States. So when I moved back to the States for that job, so interesting. So it was 2014 when I took that first job as a Talmud teacher. And one of
a Talmud teacher,
the leaders in the Judaic study department where I was going to be working at a...
I'm sure that's just a coincidence. This queer rabbi was a Talmud teacher. Okay.
Solomon Schechter Day School affiliated with the conservative movement. She called me on the phone and she said, we are so excited to have you both as like a role model of what it means to be queer and to be involved with Judaism and to be living a Jewish life. But I want you to know this history of our school. I want you to know this history of the Solomon Schechter Day School in Chicago. She said, do you know Rabbi B'nai Lappi? And I'm curious, for those here, do you know Rabbi B'nai Lappi? Okay, so wait, yes, I see a rabbi in the back knows who I'm talking about. Oh, Rabbi B'nai Lappi is...
Well, you know, everyday therapist, I'm certainly not an expert in the Talmud. I haven't watched any of those deep dive videos on the Talmud yet, although I do want to watch them at some point. So I'm not sure. Isn't the Talmud the document that states that anyone that is not Jewish is basically an animal and can be treated as such? I wouldn't know such things because it's just not a topic I've looked into, but I'm sure other people might have an answer for that.
She's the founder of the Svara Yeshiva, which is a queer yeshiva based out of Chicago.
A queer yeshiva.
And it has like online learning literally every day of the week. Is a huge project. It's won numerous awards within the Jewish community. She's like a major scholar of Talmud and has done amazing things in order to make Talmud learning accessible.
What is that
Rabbi
called?
B'nai Lappi was ordained by...
Hang on, what was that thing called that she said? Spira Yeshiva? What is that? Hang on. I need my computer. I need a window. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, check this out. So this is, I guess, that website. Their tagline is a traditionally radical yeshiva. I don't know what a yeshiva is, but I'm guessing, like, is it like a school or something? Oh, wait, what? Hang on. Is this because I have it? I think this might be because I have it, like, zoomed in or something. Yeah, okay. That should be, well, their website's a little messed up. The mission is to empower queer and trans people to expand Torah and tradition through the spiritual practice of Talmud study? What the fuck is this? What is this? What did we just stumble on? Can we learn the Talmud through this? Can we take classes in the Talmud? Seriously? Look at Look at the tattoos. Look at the tattoos. Look at the tattoos. A yeshiva is a traditional Jewish institute that studies the Talmud. Thank you. Yeah. Thems are queer tattoos. Thems are socialist tattoos. Would you believe us if we told you we were describing the Talmud, the foundational work of Rabbinic Judaism? Oh, shit. Oh. For 2 decades, Svara has offered immersive, joyful, and radical learning that centers queer and trans folks. No matter who you are or how you identify, we invite you to dive into our offerings. It's Jewish liberation theology. Well, some might argue that liberation theology is all Jewish. How can I take I want to learn about the Talmud. A live stream video. I want to learn about the Talmud. I want to learn about the queer Talmud. How do I sign up? Queer Talmud for the beginner's mind. I can't sign up. Oh no. Do I have to pay? I would totally pay for this. Trans-textual. Queerly original. The Midrash on What the fuck is this? This is the oral, okay, so maybe I can do that. Disability Justice Torah Circle? Yo, I'm gonna have to, okay, is this just, okay, that just, like, okay, I see, all. But what if I just want to watch videos? Can I just watch videos? Can I literally just watch teacher training? Start learning. What is this? Oh, I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of that means. Do you have a YouTube channel or something? Can I just start? Is there a YouTube channel? No. Man. Well, we're gonna have to keep an eye on this. That's definitely an interesting find. All right, the first victory of the stream has been achieved. Bot, did you find it? Is that it? Hang on. Did you find their bot finds everything? Let me just look at this real quick. Yo, is this what we're looking for? Don't really have many videos on it. Okay, well, not really much there, but at least we found it. At least we found it. We might need to find their Twitter account, too. All right, well, okay. We found the queer Talmudic school, so that's good.
It's a queer yeshiva based out of Chicago, and it has like online learning literally every day of the week.
Every
It's
day?
a huge project. It's won numerous awards within the Jewish community. She's like a major scholar of Talmud and has done amazing things in order to make Talmud learning accessible. Rabbi B'nai Lappi was ordained by the Jewish Theological Seminary in 1997, when I would have been like 10 or so years old. And she was closeted when she was ordained at JTS. In 2002, she was closeted when she was ordained, but she came out as a lesbian after she had been ordained. And in 2002, she was offered a teaching position
Bob.
in the Talmud department of Solomon Schechter Day School of Chicago. And when it became known that she was queer, then her position was revoked. Both from the senior rabbi at the school and the board, a number of people had like a major issue in 2002 with her teaching at Schechter. One of the documents that I shared in the drive, and which is shared online, is the letter that Rabbi Lappi wrote back to the Schechter School, talking about what it meant for her to be both a queer teacher of Talmud, a teacher of Talmud who had been offered this job, and a teacher of Talmud who had had her job taken away, who had been fired for being gay, and how she hopes that the Jewish world will someday be able to change, because this is what our children need. Like our generations need to be able to see that you can live a happy, Jewish, fulfilling life as a queer person, and that's not something that you need to hide. Oh. When I took essentially B'nai Lappi's job, but like 10 years later, in 2014, the story of her being fired was still an active conversation in the school. And I was the first out Talmud teacher to be hired by the school after her being fired. It took how many years? Like from 2002 until 2014. And so my supervisor felt like it was important for me to know. And it was, because I understood where the community was coming from. But I also felt like the weight and the amazement of being able to play this role now within the conservative movement. So I really made a switch to conservative Judaism, which I started teaching at Schechter. And in 2017, I began my rabbinical studies at the Jewish Theological Seminary. I was ordained as a rabbi. Right before, well, not right before, but while I was living my life and while I was exploring God and Torah and all of these things, there was this internal conversation going on in conservative Judaism that I was not a part of because I was living in the Orthodox community. In 2006, the conservative movement voted on a number of tshuvot, a number of responses. I know that at Bethel, this isn't really like an area of Judaism that we talk about a lot. And I don't, like, how often do you talk? You do some stuff with, so because conservative Judaism is so invested in the halachic system, in Jewish law, there's a system in place of a number of rabbis of all genders who gather together multiple times a year, and they address she'alot, they address questions that are being raised by communities in the conservative movement. And after a question comes up, then they write these long responses according to Jewish law about how to approach the question. Well, some of the questions that have come up lately are about lab grown.
Seriously? This says it has Zoom recording links? Hang on. Can we actually take the Talmud class? I didn't know Zoom did that. Where if you have the Zoom link, you can access the recording later. No, it's asking me to launch Zoom. I'll look into that, bot. Thank you. Good find.
Meet about driving electrical cars on Shabbat, about using artificial intelligence. Like, these are the things that are currently being discussed in the conservative movement. And in 2005 and 2006, the main question was, how do we become a more welcoming movement for gay and lesbian Jews? The question of like bisexual and trans Jews was kind of...
Hang on. I need to be able to listen to what they're saying, but I also want to just explore this for a second that bot found. Yeah, I see. They put it in Zoom recording. I see exactly what you're talking about. So if we go here, this is welcome to trans textual. And if we go here, syllabus and weekly recordings, Zoom recording. Uh-oh. Do we find it? Is Bot a hero? Is Bot the hero we needed? Oh, shit! Oh, shit! Oh, oh, oh my word. Who are the Jewish genders? Oh. Queerly created. Oh, I know what we're watching tomorrow. The Tum Tum? Wait a second. Wait a second. Hang on. Where is my Tum Tum document? Why I'm freaking out is there is a zine that we found that's a trans Jewish zine that's called Tum Tum. Queer. Oh, yo, we're gonna have a socialism Saturday tomorrow. Like, What not to wear? Cross-dressing. Oh. I wonder if I can download these without us. I'm going to have to look into that. All right. Bot is the hero of the day. We hit the gold mine. Yo. Okay. All right. Back to our show for today. But see, people think that listening to this stuff is boring. And it is. But I just want you guys to look at the rabbit hole we just went down. We found some queer Jewish video that got uploaded an hour ago that probably has 3 views. In that, a queer rabbi was talking about a queer Talmud school, and now we have all the recordings of one of their classes. Do you guys see how the rabbit hole works? This is how we find all the crazy shit. This right here.
Save it for like a later date. And in 2006, there were multiple responses that were voted on, and Chuvot don't need to be perfectly aligned with each other. So many of the responses were actually in direct conflict with each other. So everything from saying that, and I'm summarizing this in a huge way. If you want to read them, you can add your name to that Google Doc over there and you'll get yourself a copy. Everything from like gays and lesbians should not be rabbinical students and should not get married, and we do not want to change, to the Torah is a historical document written by human hands, and we should 100% change this because that's what we believe as the conservative movement. Kind of the middle position that was voted on was written by 3 rabbis, Dorff, Reisner, and Nevins. Those are all their last names. Rabbi Reisner lives here in the Baltimore area. And this kind of middle position said, the middle position said that because of the strength of dignity, of celebrating human dignity, we should allow for gay and lesbian rabbinical students. We should integrate gays and lesbians into our congregations, and we should figure out how to do gay marriages, but we don't know, like the footnote is like, we're not exactly sure how to do that yet, but we're going to work on it. So, though we asked that.
Oh, shit. Oh, hang on. You guys just missed a really good part. Sorry, I accidentally clicked the wrong button that took the video down. My bad. Again, apologies. My bad.
Have anal sex with each other. That's like one of, like, people who have penises don't have anal sex with each other. That's like one of the tiny footnotes of the document, and that was what was voted on.
Tiny footnote.
And it became kind of this. It became like a key that opened a door, both for a new kind of rabbinical student, but also like. It affects all of us, like not only the inner world of like who can be a rabbi and who can't be a rabbi, but it changed the way that like we taught in our Schechter schools, the way that we teach in our Hebrew schools, the way that college campus communities are created, because there's no longer this sense of like shame or like being an outsider for those who are within the queer community. Like that's the power of the movement, that we were able to shift that. And all of that shift has happened within my own life. And for anyone who's a millennial or older, we've seen that shift happen, which means that we've grown up, both in the United States and in our specific Jewish movements, in communities that were really different and that weren't so friendly to queer people. But thank God, like our children and Gen Z and Gen Alpha, the reality that they've known is that God celebrates who they are, and that the Jewish community celebrates who they are. Oh, I'm very proud to be part of that. Oh, I'll end by just going back to my JTS class, my rabbinical school class. And in my Google Drives, I have a picture of my graduating cohort and all of us like looking happy and joyous together, which we are. There's currently a rabbinical shortage, so there's not that many rabbis going through schools. There are 15 people in my graduating class. And Rabbi Berg,
we had a low,
had a low
6, but we started with 20. And then a number of people, some people dropped out. I think at least maybe one in part because of their sexual identity.
That's so depressing.
Most of them took additional years to get other masters. It just sort of happened that we ended up with that. So we actually were at a time where there were a fair number of rabbinical students.
So the other rabbis at Beth El, Rabbi Dana Sorokin and Rabbi Steve Schwartz, they were students at JTS also in times when their cohorts were like more than 30 people. I think Steve said that he had like 50 people in his cohort.
JTS was always larger than Ziegler.
Like, you don't even have to like everyone if you're in a class with 50 people. My gosh. Anyway, class of 15 students, and seven of us are queer. 3 out of those 7 are non-binary. So, your future rabbi, or anyone's future rabbi, has like a good 50-ish% chance that they're queer. And with that comes a different sense of, I mean, speaking very, very broadly.
I'm sorry? There's a good 50% chance that your future rabbi is queer? Hang on. I'm gonna record this. Record, motherfucker! Don't fail me. Don't fail me, clipping tool. There it is. Okay, fine.
Times when their cohorts were like more than 30 people. I think Steve said that he had like 50 people in his cohort.
JTS was always larger than Ziegler.
Like, you don't even have to like everyone if you're in a class with 50 people. My gosh. Anyway, class of 15 students, and seven of us are queer. 3 out of those 7 are non-binary. So, your future rabbi, or anyone's future rabbi, has like a good 50-ish% chance that they're queer. And with that comes a different sense of, I mean, speaking very, very broadly.
Hang on. I gotta turn off the closed caption and redo it again.
A number of people.
Hang on. So I need to redo this again just because the closed caption was wrong, and so I'm gonna have to replace it with something. So so please bear with me. Let's just listen to that again, shall we?
And all of us like looking happy and joyous together, which we are. There's currently a rabbinical shortage, so there's not that many rabbis going through schools. There are 15 people in my graduating class. And Rabbi Berg,
We had a low 6, but we started with 20. And then a number of people, some people dropped out. I think at least maybe one in part because of their sexual identity.
That's so depressing.
Most of them took additional years to get other masters. It just sort of happened that we ended up with that. So we actually were at a time where there were a fair number of rabbinical students.
So the other rabbis at Beth El, Rabbi Dana Sorokin and Rabbi Steve Schwartz, they were students at JTS also in times when their cohorts were like more than 30 people. I think Steve said that he had like 50 people in his cohort.
JTS was always larger than Ziegler.
Like, you don't even have to like everyone if you're in a class with 50 people. My gosh. Anyway, class of 15 students, and seven of us are queer. 3 out of those 7 are non-binary. So, your future rabbi or anyone's future rabbi has like a good 50-ish% chance that they're queer. And with that comes a different sense of, speaking very, very broadly, comes a different sense of awareness about systems of oppression. And a lot of times, this new generation of rabbis is very, very invested in creating inclusive communities, because our own lives have been shaped by both like a push away and a pull back towards Judaism. So I'll stop my comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Jewish people. Thank you for that wonderful clip that you have just graced us with. I'm going to be putting that on my Twitter later. Let me just make sure it saves real quick. As I'm saving that clip, guys, please make sure you have mounted the like button for me. We do happy hours every Friday at 5 p.m. where I drink and we watch whatever we watch. We're watching a bunch of queer videos today. We are currently watching a video called Your Next Rabbi Will Probably Be Queer, which is exactly what you think it is, and we're going to continue with that for a moment.
For like when your rabbi puts out her watch, like to time herself. I like where I stopped. And I'll take any questions that people have, and also invite people to grab these Google documents from my drive, and all of like my notes are in them. So there's a lot of like, wow, this is amazing in these long rabbinic documents, and you'll get like a sense of my own thinking. Yes.
Thank you for sharing your story. Personal story and really the story of the evolution. The conservative movement. And I'd like to pick up on where you landed, which is this greater sensitivity to people as they are, and inclusivity. And yes.
Oh, that helps so much.
Can you?
Thank you.
Where you landed about more attention to inclusivity, and maybe more sensitivity to people coming with different experiences. Do you think the conservative movement that you're learning from this process about inclusion of gay and queer people, for the question of patrilineal versus matrilineal descent? Are they related? How do you think the next generation is going to approach this?
Oh, I'm going to answer on a personal level and not on a communal level, because I'll say personally, as an individual, I feel a greater sense of there being a halachic path towards patrilineal descent, intermarriage, and like larger social pictures, like discussing Israel, Palestine, like all of those things are being funneled through my individual experience of feeling excluded within Judaism and then feeling included within Judaism. Even with 50%-ish of new conservative rabbis coming from, let's call it like a largely progressive place, for the most part, there still are very few queer rabbis who are on the CJLS. There are very few queer rabbis that are sitting around that table, writing responses and setting the halachic flavor of the conservative movement. There are a few conservative rabbinical students and new rabbis who are hoping to have that impact. In fact, one of my friends, Rabbi Jessica Dalera, served as the like the student secretary to the CGLS, and she's in the middle of writing their own responsa about transgender issues in halakha, and will eventually bring it to be voted on. But I don't see the impact of having queer rabbis leading to patrilineal descent in the near future, just because we're largely not involved in like those religious discussions. I think that the impact that we get to have is much larger on the campuses and synagogues and schools and organizations that we personally serve, instead of like movement wide. Because really there's only been just about 10 years of queer rabbinical students.
Can I grab a question off here first?
Yeah.
There are kind of one was, please talk about your spouse, and given that you're queer, who did you get to officiate at your marriage?
Oh.
You can combine those if you'd like.
Yeah. So my spouse and I, we were married at Temple Israel in Boston by a good friend of ours who's a rabbi. My spouse identifies as male and I identify as female, and we didn't have any issue in.
Christopher, do you know where gender ideology comes from? Pop quiz for Christopher. Christopher, have you ever been here before? Hang on, that might be a better first question. Has Christopher ever been here before? Let's see. Channel activity. Nope, Christopher's never. No, actually, I'm wrong. Christopher has been here before. Okay, Christopher has been here before. You've been to Socialism Saturday. Christopher, do you know where gender ideology comes from? We're waiting for your answer. Do you know where gender ideology comes from? Yes or no? Pop quiz. Christopher. Do you know where gender ideology comes from? You can say no. Is Christopher still in the chat? He's just not answering me. Let's see. Christopher, I don't like it when people ignore me when I'm asking them a question that's pretty straightforward. Okay. Christopher does not know where gender ideology comes from. Comes from this. Gender ideology comes from Judaism. Because they literally preach it. They literally say there's more than one gender. All the research relating to this, going back a long time, has been from this. So that's why we're listening to this. No, it's not. It's not. It's not controversial at all. Do you know how I know it's not controversial at all? Because we've literally watched videos of trainings that have taken place at synagogues given by rabbis on this channel that talk about Judaism as the origin of the idea that there are more than two genders. We've literally watched them say this on the channel, explicitly, in no uncertain terms. So it's not controversial. It's documented. Moving on.
Getting married. And if we had wanted to get married by a conservative rabbi, it wouldn't have been an issue.
I have no idea if money was a Jew, but money was not the origin of gender ideology. That's not the origin of gender ideology. I don't know why you continue to open your mouth before you research things, but we're going to break you of that habit eventually. I don't give a flying fuck. I've been accused of being an anti-Semite for years for no good reason. So I don't give a flying fuck. A fact is a fact. And we're not going to shy away from stating facts. I'm not doing it in a hateful way. I'm not saying Jews are bad people. I'm not saying Jews should be genocided. Obviously, they shouldn't be. No group should be genocided. But if you think I'm too much of a coward to state a fucking fact, then you don't know where you are.
Okay.
Hey.
Hi.
I had two questions that are very different. One is more of a personal question: is what drove you to the conservative movement from Orthodoxy? Was it this sense of being queer and that issue, or was it other issues related to I don't know, whatever it was? And then my second question is, what are the halachic issues for non-binary people, considering the fact that conservative Judaism is egalitarian and at this point has I would say mostly like equivalent of rules for both men and women?
Excellent question. I'm going to answer the second question first, because I think it's easier, and you might have to repeat the first question. Now, the question is, like, if conservative Judaism is egalitarian, then why should it matter if somebody is non-binary or not? A lot of the halachic process around both trans and non-binary inclusion is about the Hebrew that we use in calling people to the Torah, naming ceremonies, conversion ceremonies, wedding ceremonies, like how the ketubah is written. And so all of, because Hebrew has for many years been seen as a gendered language, so we have male language and female language, and only really also in like the last 10 years, the non-binary Hebrew project has really taken off. And so most of these projects, like what my friend Rabbi Delera is working on, is figuring out what kind of...
What's really taken off? The non-binary Hebrew project.
And only really also...
Hang on.
Ceremonies, like how the ketubah is written. And so all of, because Hebrew has for many years been seen as a gendered language, so we have male language and female language, and only really also in like the last 10 years, the non-binary Hebrew project has really taken off. And so most of these projects, like what my friend Rabbi Delera is working on...
Wait, they have a website? They have a fucking website? Of course they have a website. Of course they have a website. Hang on. Let's just take a look at the non-binary Hebrew project. Let's do it. Okay. It's not a good website. I'll tell you that. Non-binary Hebrew project. About. We are building a bigger tent for non-binary Jews through a third gender grammar semantics for Hebrew, guided by our Torah and Talmud that teach us to rejoice that which cannot be neatly Holy shit. Holy shit. Wow. The project is free, open source, community-based, and grassroots. It lives and grows and changes with every single person who uses it and adds to it. Blah, 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 blah. Liar Gross, they, them, theirs, is a connector who applies their knowledge of ecology as a framework for justice through building critical community connections and fostering diversity for resilience through education. The project uses a gender-expansive Hebrew grammatical system developed by them. Yo. The University of Colorado at Boulder? Holy shit. Do you guys know why I stopped here? Because I went undercover at the Transforming Gender Conference at the University of Colorado at Boulder almost a year ago. That's crazy. Why making Hebrew non-binary is crucial. Bro! Do they have classes or anything? Oh, look, they've got a whole guide. I don't know what any of this says, obviously, because I don't speak Hebrew, but... Wow. Wow. Non-binary 101, more resources. Let's see if they have a YouTube channel. Oh, we got all the people involved, and they're black, gay Jew, Map, created. Oh, okay, last name is Map. I was like, yo, that's about to go downhill real quick. Yeah, completely not the point. You can find fringe beliefs in all religions. There's queer Christianity too, but it's certainly not reflective of a consensus. Bro, John. What do you not understand about the fact that a core foundational teaching in Judaism is that there are like 7 different genders? That's not taught in Christianity, John. That's not part of any of the Bible. That is part of the Jewish text. It just provably is, bro. And so maybe, John, maybe you need to get your fifis in order. You need to collect your feelings. And maybe you need, yes, it actually is, John. It actually is. Do you know how I know that? Because we watched a video on this channel of a rabbi preaching at a synagogue that explained it. It's in the fucking Talmud, bro. It's in the fucking Talmud. So here's what you need to do, John. You need to go do your own research. Unless you would like to pay me to do your research for you. That starts at $50 an hour. I bill 5 hours in advance up front. Well, you're the one that's coming into my chat and questioning me. I did my research. I looked into it. You're the one being disruptive and saying, this isn't really a problem, and people that are Christians say weird things too. You're the one doing that. So maybe next time, before you try to question me on my fucking channel, do your own fucking research. My God. Oh, look, there's a whole list of queer Jewish organizations. What's this? Oh. It's got joy with a Star of David with rainbow colors. It's spelled JQY. Joy is a mental, I don't know how to pronounce that, is a mental health organization that empowers Jewish queer teens and young adults to live healthy, joyful lives. Our work is grounded in a deep understanding of Jewish tradition and mental health best practices. I'm sure it is, enabling us to provide critical services and programs for at-risk youth from historically non-accepting communities. Bro. These are all the Jewish queer organizations. Okay, more stuff to look into. Thank you. Oh, you guys can't hear that. You guys can't hear that because the sound's not set up. Yeah, there's a lot to look into there. We found the Jewish queer rabbit hole today, didn't we?
In the Hebrew, so that it is inclusive to everyone's experience. So, check on that. The second question was...
Just add a footnote to that. So just something you might notice here with that is in recent years, we made a switch in our practice that some of you who are more knowledgeable about Hebrew might have noticed, and that when we call people up to the Torah, instead of doing so, if somebody wants to be called Ya'amod or Ta'amod, we honor them, of course, but in general, our default now is to say Na La'amod. So instead of starting with a gendered pronoun or a gendered verb, we start sort of generally in an inclusive way, Na La'amod, and then we can call up somebody, whatever their Hebrew name, however they identify, and we'll say, instead of Rishon or Rishona, right, calling up the first male person to the Torah, or the first female person to the Torah, or the first Aliyah, we'll say Le Aliyah Rishona, or the first Aliyah, right, the first Aliyah. So that's like one subtle but important change that we made here at Beth-Am, so that when folks come up who are non-binary, they can just give their name and they don't have to like contort themselves to do the other one. Okay, sorry, go to your second question.
Second question was,
Switch
how did you
from,
come from Orthodox to conservative?
yeah, switch from Orthodoxy to conservative Judaism. Look, there are a lot of times in life where the slippery slope fallacy is not true, but I became the gabbai of a partnership minyan while I was living in Jerusalem. A partnership minyan is kind of like a type of Orthodox minyan where you need 10 women and 10 men in order to hold services. And women can lead certain parts of services and men must lead other parts of services, depending on what is seen as being, whether like a woman's mitzvah can fulfill a man.
Hey, John, do you take a wild guess who we get the most pushback from when we correctly point out that the fact that there are 7 genders is part of the Talmud? Guess who gives us the most pushback? Do you like? We're gonna chat GPT this shit right now. John is pissing me off because John seems to not understand what's going on. Actually, do I want to show you my chat GPT? No, not really. No, not really. Huh. Okay, I'm gonna chat GPT this on my phone, and you're just gonna ask. You're just gonna have to believe me. Nope, it's not conservatives who support Israel. Do you want to take another guess? Do Jewish, you can chat GPT this if you don't believe me. Do Jewish foundational text claim there are more than 2 genders? Jewish foundational texts such as the Talmud and other rabbinic writings recognize more than 2 genders, while the Torah, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, often refer to humanity in binary terms, male and female. Later rabbinic literature elaborates on gender diversity in various ways. Androgynos, a person with both male and female physical traits. Tum-tum, a person whose sexual characteristics are ambiguous or excused. Aelonit, a person identified as female at birth who typically develops male characteristics at puberty and is infertile. Saris, a person identified as male at birth who typically develops female characteristics and is incapable of reproduction. These categories are discussed in the Talmud and other rabbinic texts in the context of Jewish law and rituals. You're welcome to chat GPT that if you don't believe me. No, John, the people that we get the most pushback from when we talk about this are not conservatives who support Israel. It's Jews. Jews don't like us talking about this. Now, I don't care if a person's Jewish. Don't give a flying fuck. Except that anytime I talk about this, I get some angry Jewish people in my feed that are always Jewish, will tell you they're Jewish, and then get really pissed off at you for pointing out that they're Jewish. So maybe, John, you should be doing more listening and more asking questions and less talking, is all I'm saying. Use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is your friend.
Mitzvah obligation. So I was in charge of one of these minions for.
That's a good question for them, John. Why wouldn't they embrace it? Why do you think they don't embrace it?
A year and a half, and through that process, it was a slippery slope to realizing that I wanted to be included in all the aspects of services, and that in fact, if we had 18 people in the room, and 8 of them were men and 10 of them were women, then I saw that there was a minyan, even though the structure of partnership minyan did not see there as being a minyan. At the same time that I was a gabbai for that partnership minyan and entering into a slippery slope of going from Orthodox to conservative, I was also getting my master's degree in Jewish education, and I was reading a lot of Jewish theology.
It's a good idea, John.
That, like
Not
the way
the
that
only
we
answer,
talk
but
about
yeah.
God and the way that we talk about mitzvot, even though I did like 12 years in an Orthodox day school, I had never really delved into Jewish thinking in that same way. And I found that through my master's degree that every time I encountered anytime I encountered a non-Orthodox thinker, I was like, oh, wow, like that is how I think about Torah and mitzvot and God. And when I was encountering Orthodox thinkers, I was like, oh, I don't think of, no. But within Orthodoxy, there's such like a strong sense of social orthodoxy. Like you're really part of like a very tight community. And it's insular in a different way than conservative or reform or reconstructionist Judaism. So it took me like a while to figure out that I was more personally aligned with conservative Judaism. I was more religiously aligned. I was more.
Breaking news update. Breaking news. Breaking news. Breaking news. Breaking news. Is everyone ready? Lisa Logan is tweeting again! Lisa Logan is back on Twitter, and she's tweeting more crazy, unhinged, WEF United Nations Gnostic sex cult conspiracy. And James is retweeting her. Hang on. You guys don't know. If you've never encountered Lisa Logan and her insanity before, you don't even know what a treat this is. You don't even know. This is like the best thing that's ever happened on a Friday. Yeah, this is GAnon. Gnostic Anon. Oh, Lisa Logan has this idea that the radical revolutionary far left is led by new age spiritual people that are working with the UN. Oh my God, she's got a whole thread. You have a right to only have 2 children. 50 years ago today, the Club of Rome wants to dictate to you how you should live your life. Yes, having only 2 children is the biggest problem. Okay, that's not at all what the far left is, Lisa. This is the Limits to Growth Club of Rome report from 1972, talking about the Great Leap Forward, which sounds suspicious. Oh my God. Oh, this makes me so happy. We're going to have to go through that later. Yeah, so this is probably one of the women that James has allegedly been banging. And the reason I say that is Lisa Logan left Twitter after she did an event with James, and she posted this dramatic, like, going away message where she was like, I really need to spend more time with my family and they need my attention and da-da-da-da-da-da. And that was right after she went to a live in-person event with James. And of course, now we know that James is in an open marriage where James is like banging all the women around him because his stepdaughter confirmed it the other day. And so I think that allegedly, I'm probably wrong about this. This is just a rumor. I don't know this for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if he was banging Lisa Logan. And now suddenly Lisa Logan is back on Twitter spewing crazy, unhinged conspiracy theories. It's just like Christmas. It's like Christmas is all I'm saying. All right, we'll have to look into that a little bit later. I'm not going to do it right now. We're watching our queer rabbi right now.
I had to be willing to like give up a certain way that I had grown up in order to like make that switch. So I came to it eventually.
Can I grab one off of
Yeah,
here?
I think I'll let you and Rabbi Zazzle call on people and I'll bring the mic in.
Oh, sure. Okay. From Barry Online. What has been the response to your rabbinate at Bethel? Any angry, negative congregants, or I hope positive outpouring by young people, parents, queer youth? has there been any organizational systemic change that has occurred within the congregation?
Wow.
That's a pact.
This meeting
And I
is
think-
recorded.
And I know that there are some Bethel members who are online.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll say when I was interviewing for positions, Bethel was probably the warmest synagogue that I interviewed at, where other synagogues in the conservative movement made it clear that they did not want more people like me to be showing up. Due
Well,
to
that's
my
just too
rabbinate.
bad.
And at Bethel, it was framed as a non-issue. And for the most part, it hasn't been an issue. I think since I started at Bethel, I think that there were
Guys, I'm going to go to the little socialist room. I'll be right back. Please let me know if I miss anything.
sporadic, like Pride Shabbat events before I started at Bethel, but it became like a more institutionalized thing during my rabbinate, and I'm very proud of that. Not to get political, but after the most recent United States election, after the latest election, I had a number of parents from the Hebrew school who have children that are queer, non-binary, or trans, reaching out to me with a new type of intensity. And I felt like a more personal drive within this work, that there's a real value to having a rabbi who has a specific lived experience that the children can see and that the parents also feel supported by. So even though we do not have like a huge queer community at Bethel, but that there's been an important shift, especially within the families, of how they're relating to the synagogue. So I'm pleased and like very delighted to be in that role.
Great.
I can actually add to that a little.
Because you were at Bethel.
Will you I can tell you just
take them?
from knowing people at Bethel that between your being hired and your arriving, there was a tiny little bit of pushback, less than they expected. But I can tell you that both the senior staff and the lay leadership, it meant nothing to them at all. So it was a non-issue. So there was a little bit, like I said, they were prepared. It was very small. And it was inconsequential, both to the process and who they felt.
You know what I'm thinking about right now? This is not based on like what this person is saying. I'm just kind of thinking about it generally. Conservatives have been so fucking traumatized by everyone and their mother calling them racist for years and years and years and years and years, that the conservative like prioritization is on convincing everyone that they're not really racist, they're not really anti-Semitic. We love it, like we're a big tent and we don't care and everyone can be here because we're not racist, we're not anti-Semitic, and then they want everyone to confirm that they know that they're not racist and anti-Semitic. And I really think it's been traumatizing for conservatives on like a very like innate level, where they always feel the need to prove emphatically that they're definitely not racist and they're definitely not anti-Semitic. And that is taking priority over everything. And it's like when you can't even have conversations with them where you're talking about just like facts and reality, because they have to prove, like they're like, no, I love black people. I love all black people. Black people are great. Black people definitely don't commit more crime statistically. And I love all Jewish people, and we should give all Jewish people our money and we should send so much money to Israel, and we shouldn't send any money to Ukraine, but we should send all that money to Israel because we're not anti-Semitic. Like, we're not, like, we love all, I mean, it's just like their desire to prove, or the H-1B visa thing. We love legal immigrants. We just hate illegal immigrants. We love immigrants if they're legal. We don't mind immigrants coming in and taking American jobs as long as they're legal, guys. We love all the Indians that are being imported by Elon Musk to go work at Tesla for cheaper wages, and they're going to drive American wages down, and they're going to raise housing costs and all that stuff. But that's okay because we love them because they're legal immigrants, and it doesn't matter that they're taking American jobs because we are not racist, guys. And it's like, this is the point of that book that I started writing, honestly. And I didn't expect it to necessarily go that way. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can find it over on my Red Menace Collective Substack, which is redmenacecollective.substack.com. I'm working on a new tiny little book. It's going to be about 10,000 words about the history of the term racism and how it got created and how it got developed. And honestly, what I found in my research is that the term racism was invented to be a political weapon to push leftist policies. That's what the research fucking says, guys. It was never about treating people equally or fairly or any of these things. It was purely always a political weapon, which I don't think is not surprising. It shouldn't be surprising, but actually seeing the development of the term, it like really was like very frustrating because conservatives are so fucking cucked. They are so cucked to this because they're in this desperate place to like be accepted. And we're not racist. Accept us. Love us. We're not racist. We promise. Pinky swear. Trust me, bro. And it's like all of their common sense goes out the window when they're trying to prove that they're not racist. When they don't realize that, like, the whole idea that they're racist to begin with is being used to get them to accept things that are counter to their best interest. It is not in the best interest of America to be importing Indian immigrants to take American jobs that Americans could damn well do for less wages. That is not in our best interest. That is not in our best interest. Bro, you must not have been around for a while. I'm a fucking fascist now, and I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I haven't claimed anarcho-capitalism in a while. You want to know why, John? Because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It can't be implemented. It doesn't work. It is not practical. John is one of those people I'm talking about, by the way. John is desperate to prove to everyone that he's not racist. No, Pinky's word. I'm not racist. Don't call me racist. It's the worst thing you could ever call me. I'm not saying that we should treat people differently on the basis of their race or their ethnicity or any of those things. I'm not saying that white Americans are better than anyone else. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that Americans should be looking out for the best interest of Americans. And when we are cucked to Israel because you don't want to be accused of being anti-Semitic, or we are cucked to fucking India because you don't want to be accused of being racist, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. And conservatives need to find their fucking balls and do what is required. Sometimes you have to make decisions that you don't want to make in order to defeat greater evils. And the greater evil in this case is communism, is the radical revolutionary far left. And if I have to choose, I completely agree, Soy Goy Roy. If I had to choose between being a communist and being a fascist, I would be a fascist every single day. Libertarianism is not going to save us. Look how easily the libertarians got cucked to Trump in the last election. Libertarians are never going to save us. If I thought there was a possibility of getting my dream Ancapistan, I would be on board. But it's not going to happen. Libertarians voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump because they were pissed off that they got outplayed in an internal libertarian political process. So when you have that level of retardia, when you definitely think that Donald Trump is the libertarian choice for president, when you are that level of stupid, you cannot be trusted to organize anything. And that's when I embrace fascism. Not that it's my first choice. But if I care about defeating the radical revolutionary far left, then decisions will have to be made. And one of those decisions that I would make, well, some would say it's nationalism too, I suppose. But one of those decisions I would make if I was the fascist dictator of the United States is that I would ban fucking immigration. No more immigration. No. No. No more Indian immigrants working for Tesla. No. And it's not because I hate Indian people, because I don't particularly care if people are Indian. I think Indians make great food. But it's because there are Americans who need those fucking jobs, who are perfectly capable of doing those fucking jobs, who are being replaced by Indian immigrants because they're cheaper than hiring Americans, and that is just fact. And if we don't start admitting these things out of fear of like, oh my God, they're gonna call me a racist. I don't fucking hate Indian people. I know I don't hate Indian people. I don't think me stating that most crimes are committed by black people is proof that I hate black people. I don't fucking hate black people. But I don't want to be robbed when I'm walking down a city street, which is almost what happened to me when I went to Detroit. And I don't think it makes me a racist to admit these realities. Anyway, just my thoughts there. The point being, stop being so fucking afraid of being called a name. No, John, no. Okay, John, I don't think you belong here. I'm going to be very, very blunt. I don't think you belong here. I'm starting to think you're not smart enough to be here. You're not following along with anything that's being said. Obviously, John, you have no interest in defeating the radical revolutionary far left. You might as well throw on a fucking red shirt, bro, and go to a communist protest. That's basically where you are right now. If you ever evolve out of that, we'll be here. But I'm telling you right now, you are not in a place to be here, bro. You're not following what's being said.
They were getting this amazing rabbi, and inconsequential to staff and their leadership. So,
and I've had congregants, especially in the second and third year, say over kiddish, like, "Oh, Rabbi, I didn't think I would like you, but you're doing great. You're doing great." And so I like what they're talking about is like I think that what they're alluding to is like this aspect, and yes, like I am part.
I should have fucking known. This is John's first ever time on the stream. He only joined 42 minutes ago. I should have known.
Like this switch of conservative
should have known.
And
should have known.
I'm glad that
should have known. Really? Why are we jumping to fascism? Because classical liberalism leads to the left winning. Classical liberalism means the left win. You want to be a classical liberal, you need to go hang out with James Lindsay, because that's what you're going to get when you're embracing classical liberalism. Classical liberalism is what got us into this mess to begin with. Classical liberalism is what led to the left controlling every major institution in our world. Classical liberalism is what's going to lead to the left winning, because they're never going to solve it. They are incapable of solving it. They don't want to solve it. They don't have the ability to solve it. So no, classical liberalism is not worthwhile. And if you are a classical liberal, I basically consider you to be worse than leftists, because you stand for nothing. Honestly, you stand for nothing if you're a classical liberal. No, John, we don't have a disagreement. You are wrong, and you are too low IQ to know that you're wrong. So now what's going to happen, John, is I'm going to put you in a 24-hour timeout, because I didn't realize this was your first ever time chatting into my channel. So what's going to happen, John, is now you're going to listen. You're going to stop talking, and you're going to start listening.
Lay that pathway forward. Maybe one or two more questions.
We have, it's 8:45. We have, I mean, if you're okay, we have still 15 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you can pick or whatever.
Who's
sorry?
Okay. So yes. 1983.
Yeah. So
telegraphed where I'm born, when I was born. So it sounds like we're around the same age. I grew up Reform in a conservative Orthodox day school in Kansas City, which is not a small community. But I wonder about the net effect, and you used an interesting term, slippery slope, which could end up out of the faith at all if someone feels not welcome in especially a smaller community. And with the paucity of rabbinic graduates, just not enough of rabbis to staff. And I'll name a place like Cumberland, which is now adding population.
Hang on. So I don't want to name over on Rumble says, this is actually a good question. She said queer and non-binary. What is the difference? Apologies. I just saw that chat in, so I don't know exactly when she said that. Queer and non-binary effectively mean the same thing, but oftentimes you'll find queer people that refer to themselves as queer and non-binary. And it's just like, this is just one of the nuances of socialist language, whereas oftentimes they use the same word, they use different words to basically mean the same concept over and over and over and over and over again. So technically speaking, the terms are slightly nuanced. Queer is a far left political ideology. Being non-binary is a gender identity that is the rejection of the gender binary. One of the goals of queer theory is, of course, to abolish the gender binary. The gender binary is men and women. They want to abolish the gender binary because they believe that it is socially constructed categories that were created by capitalism and that will need to be destroyed in order to abolish capitalism. So they are technically like two slightly nuanced terms, but most people who identify as queer do also identify as some variation of non-binary, but they're not strictly speaking the same thing. But this is just one of those nuances of socialist language where they will generally say several different terms to basically allude to the same concept because they're flowery and artistic, and that's just the way it goes. Hope that helped.
Among them, I know are some Jews. Some of those families had come to Baltimore in previous generations. Are you aware of any net effect on like smaller communities, and if it's easier to do and recalibrate what we've done in a place like Chicago or Baltimore, and the interplay? If you went Orthodox to conservative, did you notice folks going conservative to Reform or other?
So that second part, like if I've noticed people going from conservative to the Reform movement, like as if the movements are in some kind of slippery slope.
Oh, can you repeat the question a little bit? Someone couldn't hear it.
The question is like, what have I noticed in the conservative movement? If people have felt pushed away, have I noticed people leaving the movement? And in truth, like my involvement with conservative Judaism has only been like I started working in a conservative day school in 2014, and in 2006 the movement had made the decision to bring in gay and lesbian rabbis, and like this, the reality has just been different. So I personally don't know anyone who's moved out of the conservative movement because of, actually that's not true. Rabbi Dredge in actually I can think of a few Hebrew college students who grew up in the conservative movement and left, like who are our age. Yeah. So I know rabbis where that's been a reality.
I guess that's more of the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
We also see lots of, we see that there's some great people who grew up in the Reform movement who have become conservative. So,
and also like with like the denominations are only as useful in the ways that they help us get closer to God and to live a life of Kedusha. And with rabbinical programs like Hebrew College, and we're seeing like we're all invested in a future where Torah learning and access to God are accessible to Jews, no matter what denomination they end up with. And the other question was about smaller Jewish communities.
Especially if it's in the scenario very real where it's a smaller aging community and there's not enough critical mass to accept the rabbi that they can get, so to speak, what might happen?
This is being recorded.
It still is, yes.
I actually think that this is one of the major one of the major problems within conservative Judaism today, from an internal behind the curtain kind of view, not like in talks with like the system within conservative Judaism that helps rabbis find jobs. The reality is that a number of smaller congregations will not get a rabbi because the rabbi that they want is not the rabbi that is available. So if right now there are like 40 jobs available through the Rabbinical Assembly, the movement of conservative Judaism, first of all, people who are queer aren't going to go to certain.
I mean, would it make sense to say that religious philosophy as Judaism was the inspiration for communism? I don't know enough about the religious philosophy of Judaism to be able to say that definitively. Sorry, Goy Roy. I mean, and really, I do like to try to be nuanced with my takes. Don't let the yelling confuse you. If I'm yelling about something, it's because I have actually researched something and I understand it. In this case, like, I don't know enough about. I've never read the Talmud, man. Like, I've never looked at any of this stuff. I know enough to be dangerous, but I don't know that much, and so I'm not comfortable saying that. What I will say is that Karl Marx was Jewish. What I will say is that Lenin was Jewish. What I will say is that Trotsky was Jewish. What I will say is that that most people involved in the Frankfurt School were Jewish. And that's not to say that all communists and socialists are Jewish, because that's just not true at all in any way, especially when you look at it in the modern context, right? There are a lot of socialist activists that are not Jewish. So maybe, yep, Hirschfeld was Jewish. Yep, true. So there are some coincidences, and I think that Freud was Jewish, yep. Mao was not Jewish, but Mao is not someone that is avowed by the radical revolutionary far left, because Mao is in the tradition of Stalin, which is outside the bounds of what they consider to be actual socialism. Most socialists believe that Stalin ruined everything. Mao is in the tradition of Stalin. So they don't avow Mao at all. That's a conservative bullshit myth. Yeah, Adorno, Marcuse, yep, yeah. So there was certainly a lot of Jewish people involved in the development of the ideology that currently pervades the radical revolutionary far left. Like, a lot. And that seems to be more of a coincidence, more than a coincidence to me, but I don't think we can say that conclusively.
States where their rights aren't going to be protected. So that takes out like 3/4 of the jobs that are currently available. And then, like, you're asking yourself, do I want to move my family into a community where we're going to be the only queer family? And then the synagogue is asking themselves, like, who is this rabbi that we're imagining to have? Yeah, it's very hard in that way. And right now, the Jewish Theological Seminary is doing what it can to prepare congregations for who the rabbis actually are. So there's a new push this year to send rabbinical students to multiple congregations so that congregants can see.
Most of the Bolshevik leadership was Jewish. Yeah, Jewish kibbutzes are basically communes. They're very communist.
Who these current rabbis are, and so they can mentally prepare themselves for the fact that their new rabbi is not who they originally pictured in their head. And if they're going to want a rabbi in 5 years or in 6 years, what kind of structures do they want to put in place in their community to make that an appealing choice for someone who's LGBTQ?
Wow.
Over here in the gray, and then up here in the blue.
If there are 40 jobs open and 15 graduates of JTS, does that mean that they're, like, not only are you're not going to get the rabbi that you imagine, but...
Hang on. You're one of the only streamers I know that keeps doing lives during the holidays. You want to know why? Because I got a lot of shit I need to watch. This is basically homework for me, and you guys are coming along for the ride, but I do appreciate it. If you appreciate me doing streams over the holidays, or I guess, I don't know if we're still in the holidays, hey man, feel free to send in a super chat. But I'm doing research here.
Yes. Yes.
And there is another rabbinical school in the conservative movement as well.
There is another that offers better financial aid, so we can plug.
Look, it's true, and that there's a low number, and also rabbis just coming out of rabbinical school typically go to congregations of a certain size, but you wouldn't have, the senior rabbi of Bethel, right, wouldn't be somebody right out of rabbinical school. So there's also like a kind of scaffolding of, experience plus training that's factored into this.
But you can be fresh out of rabbinical school, and you can be the rabbi of like a micro congregation, like a congregation with 100 or 150 families, like.
Micro.
Okay, not just Bethel has over 1,500 families, so it's not micro. Hello.
It's perfectly reasonably small.
How many families was
125.
125. Yes.
Last question. Get the last one.
So this last question is going to mix data and an anecdote. So if it may not be true entirely.
Okay.
There is a fear because of the Pew Forum that Jews have a much more accelerated move outside of their religious communities compared to other religious traditions, becoming the religious nuns. And so that's what I've read. I guess that's the data point. The experiential point is that I work with rabbinical students, seminarians, Muslim, Christian, in a variety of contexts. And the 50% number that you're describing seems much higher in Reform and Reconstructionist Judaism, to the point where when we lead some retreats, all the Reconstructionist students are LGBT identifying or at least affirming. And it seems that the relationship with other clergy connects to this Pew Forum issue, because if people are moving out of synagogues, that is becoming religious nuns, but liberal Jewish movements have become more inclusive. Do you think that in 20 or 30 years, when the people who are on the margins of these halakhic decisions become the gatekeepers of it, that we might see a move back into Jewish contexts institutionally in an environment that's become more hyper-authoritarian, hyper-xenophobic, hyper-homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic? Do you see a positive future when the 50% becomes 60% or 70%? That this actually could be the future of Judaism in the U.S.?
I mean,
is that too convoluted?
Yeah, I mean, I can't predict the future, but within not being able to predict the future, then I do predict that this is the future, that Judaism's strength is in a personal connection to God, and I believe in a personal connection to Torah. And that means, though, that communal spaces don't need to be people's end-all, be-all of being Jewish. And guides are always needed in order to help make Judaism accessible to people. So, like, we're living in a time where most millennials and Gen Z and even Gen X are not invested in religion in communal religion the same way that their, like, let's say, grandparents were. But that doesn't mean that they're not interested.
Ooh, a troll. What a disgusting person you have become. Do you want to provide us with any evidence of that? person who has never chatted on my channel before? I think we all know who this is. What a disgusting person you have become. So, yep, this person has, oh, it looks like a helpful review. Hang on. Yep. Would you like to provide us with any evidence of that? Because we're literally sitting here talking to, we're sitting here listening to a Jewish rabbi. I don't know. I don't know if this is the person I banned earlier. I don't know. Yeah, they usually ask a couple of questions before just insulting me. This is awfully direct. Would you like to provide any proof? What proof do you have that I'm a disgusting person? We're waiting. Here's your big opportunity. We're waiting. Is this John Tester from just a couple minutes ago? John, did you create a whole new account? And then your account got banned for 24 hours, and now you're having a lot of feelings about that because you were just here to cause problems. You're new because you dislike James? Welcome, John. Welcome. When was his account was actually created 13 years ago. So his account is old. Of the newest one, that's actually old. We are waiting, troll. We are waiting. What proof do you have that I'm a disgusting person? Is he still here? Has he run away like a child? No, he's still here. Hey, troll, we're waiting for your proof, bro. This is your moment to shine. What proof do you have that I'm a disgusting person? Yeah, everyone who dislikes James Lindsay will find comfort here. But sometimes we yell at trolls just to make an example of them. Your last chance before I ban you. What proof do you have that I'm a disgusting person? We're waiting for your evidence. If you have all this evidence that I'm just a disgusting person, you're going to be able to present it to us. So, what's your evidence? How rude to disrupt the presentation. Has no proof. No proof. No proof. All right. Well, that presentation is basically over. Hey, you guys want to watch a rock video? You guys want to watch a video? Here's what we're going to do. Spore Man. You have until the end of this video to present your evidence. You have until the end of this queer video, which is about 2 minutes and 13 seconds long. Actually, I think it's 19 seconds. I got to go back to the very beginning. We want to watch it from the beginning. It's a little over 2 minutes long. And we're going to watch this music video, and you have that amount of time to present your evidence that I'm a disgusting person until we permanently ban you from the chat. So this is a song from a band called Dog Park Dissidents that says queer. The title is Queer as in fuck you, which is a particularly apropos song for us to listen to right now. Yeah, they might call me nasty, but they never call me a liar, do they? So this is a queer punk rock video. It's about 7 years old. Let's watch. Cheers.
I don't want to get married. I don't want to be just like you. Nobody bothered to ask me. They said I ought to be just like you. Well, I could get a marriage license for a husband and me. Use the type insurance for my HART. Since I can file taxes with the same gender spouse, I shouldn't feel so bad getting kicked out of my house. Don't send me a rainbow.
that pink triangle. Look at that pink. This is an anarcho-communist triangle, guys. The upside down pink triangle means queer anarcho-communist. That's a queer anarchist band. What did you guys notice about that song? What'd you notice about that? Chat in. And in the meantime, I'm very sorry, Sportman. In the meantime, we're going to have to permanently ban you because we gave you 2 minutes to provide evidence of your claim that I'm a disgusting human being. You didn't even bother to chat in, bro. So now we got to ban you. How sad is that for you? But guys, while I'm banning him, what did you notice about that queer anarcho-communist music video? Wasn't that an interesting thing to find? I liked that they had all the lyrics about it on, like on the thing too. Yup, it dissed homonormativity. It said, we don't want your gay marriage because, of course, queer anarcho-communists were not in favor of gay marriage. They were not in favor of gay marriage at all. They know the difference between gay and queer. The reason that queer anarcho-communists were not in favor of gay marriage is because they thought that it meant the gays were assimilating to the straights, and they don't like that. There were references to hating the markets, hating capitalism. It was against homonormativity. Yes, John, that was when they actually used the term bourgeois. I was like, bro, could it have been more on the nose? They do not like the corporatism or capitalism of Pride. Yeah, they think that Pride is inherently capitalist. They don't want to participate in it. That's called rainbow capitalism, when gays are exploited for capitalist purposes. They hate Pride as a capitulation to the cis bourgeoisie. You know, we didn't hear anything about Gnosticism. Do you guys want to listen to it one more time? And this is actually a perfect introduction to the next presentation we're going to watch. Let's listen to it one more time just so you can like hear all the anti-capitalist sentiment, all the sentiment that aligns perfectly with queer anarchy. And it's like not the worst song in the world. I mean, we get mooned in it. I mean, so that's something, I guess. One more time.
I don't wanna get married. I don't wanna be just like you. Nobody bothered to ask me. They said I ought to be just like you. Well, I could get a marriage license for a husband and me, so I could use the health insurance for my HART. Since I can file taxi with the same gender spouse, I shouldn't feel so bad getting kicked out of my house. Don't send me a rainbow. Your luck has never done shit for me. Don't want a seat at your table. A fucking invitation to your party. You wanna celebrate a game on your cable TV? Well, trans lesbians are calling southern bodies stuff to eat. You paid the world for tea of the shotguns and dick. Well, all the kids on the street are getting belted with whips. I don't wanna be equal, 'cause I know I'm fucking better than you. Your moderation is lethal. Get on my way, let me do what I need to. There's no protection that this nation's thinking offered to me. Just all it brings is do this is my gay bourgeoisie. So fuck off with your rainbow South American flag. The only colors that I need are the pink and the black.
Wait, I have to pause it there. That was crazy. Let's just hang on. I want to get this whole thing in here. This is a particularly important line. Tolkien fan says, interesting how people attack you yet never seem to critique your work on the far left nor provide evidence to back up their claims. It is interesting, isn't it? Every single time that happens, it is interesting. More commie music theory classes. I'll do my best, LK. Thank you guys for those super chats. Let me just get all this on the screen. Hang on. Okay, check this out. Just olive branches to the cis white gay bourgeoisie. That means homonormativity. So fuck off with your rainbow striped American flags. The only colors that I need are the pink and the black. That's a reference to queer anarcho-communism. Okay, they're saying, we don't need your rainbow flags. Your rainbow flags are just tools of capitalism. That's what capitalism is. Or excuse me, that's what Pride is. It's a tool of rainbow capitalism. Fuck right off. We want our pink anarcho-communist triangle. How funny.
American flag. The only colors that I need are the pink and the black.
What does that mean? Pop quiz for the chat. Not gay as in happy, but queer as in fuck you. What does that mean? What does that mean? Not gay as in happy, but queer as in fuck you. What does that mean? I know you guys know the answer to this. They're saying that queer is about rebelling against capitalist norms. They're not gay, they're queer. Those are two different categories. Gay is not queer. Queer means fuck normativity, fuck capitalism, fuck normativity. Gay equals happiness in normality. They're pushing back against normativity. Queer is in non-normative. They're non-normative. Note, the inverted pink triangle does not mean gay. It means queer anarcho-communism. The inverted pink triangle is queer anarcho-communism. It does not mean gay. They're not happy with the system. They want to abolish it. Happiness within the status quo is counter-revolutionary. It means fuck capitalism. It means to disrupt the normative. Queer is in the opposition to normativity within the capitalist system. Gay is a tool to evade joining the struggle against capitalist norms, while queer is the struggle. Julian, that's such a good way to put it. Well done. All right. That's our little musical interlude, but that's going to lead nicely into the next video we're going to watch. This is a 13-minute video, so these videos are relatively short. This is the long queer history of punk. I've been waiting to watch this video for a while. I've had it on my list for a while. And essentially the reason we want to watch this is that what we just saw was a queer anarcho-communist music video. Queer anarcho-communism co-opted the punk movement. At some point, and I think it was in the early 80s, maybe even the 70s, but I think it was in the early 80s, they merged. And by the 90s, the punk movement was almost entirely queer. And this is where we get the development of this queer anarcho-communist stuff that we're listening to on the Counter-Revolutionary podcast, the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, because at some point these movements merged, and this is the community, this is the particular subculture that produced all of the crazy things that we're seeing come out of that anarcho-communist literature. So I thought this would be a good video to watch, because I want to learn about what the queer history of punk actually is. When did they co-opt the movement? When did this all happen? So let's see. As a musician, I learned that CBGB's punk was always gay, just not promote. I don't think that's true. CBGB's punk was not always gay. That's not true. That's just provably not true. Now, I'm willing to entertain the fact that, like, that this may have happened in the 70s. I'm willing to entertain that, but I don't buy into the notion that I mean, maybe provide me with evidence. I'll look at the evidence, but, like, no, I don't. No. That's just false. I'm sorry. That's not true. We don't make shit up here. Provide evidence. And I have an understanding of this, and I don't think that's true. Anyway, let's look.
Fanzine JD Center.
No, an ad. Dang. Hang on. Skip.
Entered a giant photocopy of a picture of Sex Pistols bassist Sid Vicious reclining in a bed with manager Nils Stevenson, a dazed and suggestive look in both of their eyes. Emblazoned on the side of the page in all caps was the declaration, "All punks are gay," directly confronting the reader and forcing them to question the two men's presumed heterosexuality. To the normative heterosexual gaze,
well, that doesn't mean it's actually a statement of fact. That means that they had to do with queer anarchism. So that doesn't actually validate your perspective that everyone at CBGB was gay. If you're taking a victory lap on that, your evidentiary standard is very, very, very low. Because I'll tell you, I went to the Punk Rock Museum when I was in Las Vegas, and were there some references to queer? Yeah, there were some, but there weren't a lot. So, based on the Punk Rock Museum, you're wrong.
This declaration might seem jarring, but if you know the real history of punk, it only confirms what most of us already know to be true. Queerness has always been intrinsically linked to the punk movement, both overtly and covertly. As Alexander Doty writes in Making Things Perfectly Queer, queer readings aren't alternative readings or reading too much into things. They result from the recognition and articulation of the complex range of queerness that has been in popular cultural texts and their audiences all along. The word punk has a deep and storied queer lineage. The term punk was documented to first appear in a medieval folk song called Simon the Old Kinge, also called Old Simon the King, which was eventually recorded in 1991 by Matty Pryor and the Carnival Band on a compilation of medieval carols. And in the song, the word punk is used to refer to a sex worker.
So fellows, if you be drunk, the frailty it is a sin, no for to keep a funk.
The term was later picked up by Shakespeare, who used the word in Measure for Measure, where Lucio says to the Duke, "My lord, she may be a punk, for many of them are, neither maid, widow, nor wife." The most problematic use of the word punk was in the 1930s, when a slang-obsessed clarinetist named Mez Mesro defined punk as a young man who plays the feminine role in a homosexual relationship. Queer rock and roll pioneer Little Richard has a famous quote that reads, "I went through a lot when I was a boy. They called me sissy, punk, freak." Later in the 60s and early 70s, queer male inmates in San Francisco and New York prisons began to wear the word punk as a badge of honor. Bands like the Stooges.
I really want to make the point here because I understand how people can be confused by this. Being queer is not about being gay or trans. So the video right now is trying to make the claim, and you know, they're making a fair case, that the term punk was used as a reference to like effeminate men to indicate that they were gay. But it's really important that people understand queer as it's understood basically since the 70s has not been about being gay or trans. People who understand it that way are doing a surface level analysis on what's actually being said. So it doesn't actually matter if the term punk was used to refer to like effeminate gay men, because queer is a far left political ideology. And so we need to be really careful about that. Now, that's not to say that most of these people also weren't leftists. I'm betting a lot of these people were actually leftists. So someone can be both an effeminate gay man and queer at the same time, but that doesn't mean that you have to be one to be the other, okay? So I'm sure looking at this photo, we've got men that are playing with gender, that are like doing this gender bending thing. They could also be queer in that they're far leftists, and many of them were probably, but that doesn't mean that it's necessary to be both. Like, you can be one or the other, or you can be both.
The New York Dolls and the Velvet Underground all had members who were formerly incarcerated, as well as members.
Okay, so this is actually a question that I've been getting a lot lately. So Conservative Kitty Lady says, what happens when they become the norm? So this is over on Rumble. They're asking this question. That's why I can't display it on the screen. But it's important that we answer this question. What happens when queer becomes the norm? Because we know that the definition of queer is pushing back against normativity, okay? So what happens when they get their way and they become the norm? The answer to this lies in the definition of normativity. So normativity doesn't just mean what's considered to be normal. What does normativity mean? Pop quiz for the chat. It's not just that it's considered to be normal. If your understanding of normativity is what's currently normal, that is an incorrect understanding of what normativity means. What does normativity mean? Normativity means norms that uphold capitalism. Normativity means norms that uphold the capitalist structure. So if you're saying what happens, the norms and the ideals that uphold capitalism. Normativity is everything that upholds capitalism. So what queer Marxists want is to overthrow capitalism and establish a Marxist utopia. If they get their way and they overthrow capitalism and they establish a Marxist utopia, that does not, repeat, does not make the Marxist utopia normative. Because normative is the opposite of the Marxist utopia, because normative are the norms that uphold capitalism. They're the norms that uphold capitalism. The social order that supports capitalism. A queer Marxist utopia, by very definition, cannot be normative. So anyone who's asking the question, what do they happen when what they want becomes the norm, has a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be normative, because normative is about upholding capitalism. There will not be normativity in the Marxist utopia because the Marxist utopia will not uphold capitalist norms. That's why we always go back to the definitions. The definitions are all that matters. If you understand the definitions of these terms, then everything they say and do makes sense. If you do not understand the definitions of these terms, then you will be perpetually confused about why they're doing what they're doing.
Who were queer and had connections to queer art scenes, specifically the Velvet Underground and their work with Andy Warhol and superstars like Candy Darling, Holly Woodlawn, and Jackie Curtis. These bands also experimented with gender fluidity and nihilistic camp, which, as Nathan Lai writes in Afropunk, presented a version of rock that was free from the musical pretensions and relentless heteronormativity of the prog generation. The queer roots of the punk movement in New York can be traced back to Jane County, the visibly transgender performance artist and frontwoman of CBGB and Max's Kansas City residence, The Electric Chairs. Jane County and her rebellious, unabashedly queer, irreverent performance style influenced all of the punk movement to come after her, including one of the most important musicians of arguably any generation, which was David Bowie. According to County,
Bowie was androgynous. You know, I do actually have a piece that I wrote on the Substack, which is about the difference between androgyny and non-binary. But that's interesting. That's really interesting that Bowie was inspired by this queer punk person. According to the County, soon after witnessing the gaudy spectacle of Warhol's pork, it was fucking Warhol. Of course it's fucking Warhol. Of Warhol's pork in 1971, Bowie upped the ante of his stage shows, adding makeup and sparkly accoutrements to his queer sensibility, which was already visible on the cross-dressing cover of his album, The Man Who Sold the World in 1971, geez. And this is in Queer Punk Before Queercore. Can we look that up? Queer Punk Before Queercore?
soon after witnessing the gaudy spectacle of Warhol's pork in 1971, Bowie upped the ante of his stage shows, adding makeup and sparkly accoutrements to his queer sensibility, which was already visible on the cross-dressing cover of his album The Man Who Sold the World in 1971. Fellow glam rockers the New York Dolls did the same, regularly dressing in drag while singing the songs Trash and Personality Crisis, a shtick that garnered them quick notoriety, including with tastemaker Malcolm McLaren, who, enamored with the Dolls' crappy old lipstick and tardiness, was inspired to bring punk back to the UK, eventually becoming the impresario of the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, this is actually a really good point, Musican. Remember, queer Marxists interpret history through a queer lens. It doesn't mean these people were queer, they were challenged. That's actually a really good point. So we shouldn't actually be making the assumption that this person is telling the truth about what happened because they are interpreting it through a queer lens. Wow. Thank you, Bot, for finding that book for me. I appreciate it. Oh, Reagan, you found a link as well. Thank you.
Even the skinny jeans, white t-shirt, and leather jacket look that came to be identified with such punk rockers as the Ramones bore striking resemblance to the clothes worn by gay male hustlers at the time, giving this look its own queer connotation, at least for those in the know, who was anyone paying close attention, as at least one member of the Ramones, Dee Dee Ramone, spent time as a gay-for-pay hustler in the early 1970s.
I mean, what I will say is I have done some research into, like, when queer became an anti-capitalist term, and the year that that queer became an anti-capitalist term was 1964, so that does actually align with all this.
He later recorded his experience in the song 53rd and 3rd, named after the famous cruising spot where he worked, and told an interviewer that the song speaks for itself. Everything I write is autobiographical and really real. Omnisexuality is also referenced in the Ramones' We're a Happy Family, which undercuts the presumed heterosexuality of the idealized nuclear family by surprising listeners with the revelation that daddy likes men. This element of queerness in punk was very much present in cinema as well, with directors like John Waters and stars like Divine. In some of Waters' most famous films like Pink Flamingos, Female Trouble, and Multiple Maniacs. I always identified with the punk community, which was gayer than it ever admitted. Pink Flamingos was a punk film, but we didn't have a name for it yet.
Give us some of your political beliefs.
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit. Filth are my politics. Filth is my life.
There were also Andy Warhol films like Hustler and Women in Revolt. And of course there was the most notable cult film and musical, Rocky Horror Picture Show,
for real.
where the recently engaged couple, Brad and Janet, represent the quote-unquote pure, heteronormative ideal, and Frankenfurter and his ilk represent queerness, the sexually liberated, the quote-unquote other. The LA punk scene also has a deep queer lineage. One of the most influential figures was Vaginal Davis, a black queer intersex performer who emerged on the LA scene in the late 70s with her band The Afro Sisters, who opened for the Smiths at one point. Davis's campy, satirical stage performances took jabs at white privilege, patriarchy, and heteronormativity.
You guys understand, right? That, okay, I haven't looked into this a lot, but I've looked into it a little bit. I'm pretty sure Judith Butler was involved in these scenes. Judith Butler, of course, is one of the godparents of queer theory. Let me just chat GPT this real quick. Was Judith, I'm pretty sure I looked this up one time. Was Judith Butler involved in punk scenes in the 70s? Yes, Judith Butler, renowned philosopher and gender theorist, has mentioned being involved in punk scenes in the 70s. In interviews, Butler has reflected on the influence of punk culture on their intellectual development and outlook. The DIY ethos, rebellion against the norms, and subversion of traditional structures in punk likely resonated with and informed their later work on gender performativity and challenging societal binaries. Who else on the internet figured this shit out? Has anyone else on the internet figured this out? Judith Butler, who advanced the ideas that gender is performative, was involved in punk scenes in the fucking 70s. It was not Judith Butler who inspired the punk scene. It was the punk scene that inspired Judith Butler. Queer is a product of the punk scene. And it's not even, I was wrong about something. It's not that queer co-opted the punk scene. It's that queer is a product of the punk scene. That's so depressing, man. I love punk music. That's really upsetting to me, actually. Queer came out of the punk scene. Let me chat GPT this. Was Michel Foucault involved in the punk scene in the 70s? Nope, there's not a connection there. Actually, well, that would have been earlier, right? Was he ever involved in the punk scene? There's no evidence of that. Okay, so that's something. Foucault did engage with countercultural and radical movements, particularly with relation to sexuality and human rights. Okay, well, that's something, I guess. Yeah, where are my $2 super chats? Well, I was right and I was wrong. I thought that queer co-opted the punk scene, but I'm now becoming convinced that queer was a byproduct of the punk scene, and that makes me really upset. Yeah, bro, you may have turned out to be right, to be honest with you. You may have turned out to be right. Now, I just wanted evidence. I want receipts of that, but like if the receipts take me in that direction, I'll go in that direction. It's all about the evidence. And they did mention CBGB in the video, too. That sucks. But it makes sense, right? It makes sense. But it sucks.
Her combination of queercore punk sensibilities and studio glamour was lovingly dubbed terrorist drag by queer academic scholar Jose Esteban Munoz. She was also on the forefront of queer zine making with her self-printed and self-published zines Crude and Fertile.
Queer zine making, who figured that out?
LaToya Jackson. Other influential queer punks were Alice Bagg from The Bags and, of course, Darby Crash from The Germs. Alice Bagg is a queer feminist archivist, and Darby Crash was one of the seminal figures in the LA punk scene. But it wasn't just his attraction to men that made him a queer icon. It was also the mentality that he lived by. Another important part of his legacy is the intense cult-like community formed around the Germs and their audience.
Thanks,
the essay Annihilation and Innovation in the Punk Rock Commons by queer punk scholar Jose Esteban Munoz is one of the earliest written works to pave the way for modern-day queer fandom studies. Munoz writes about Crash filling the role of the sympathetic pariah and the struggle to separate the autobiographical from the mythical figure of Darby Crash.
That just, I mean, gender ideology was born out of the punk scene. Like, really think about this for a second. Really think about this. Gender ideology was born out of the punk scene. That means all the gender shit that's taught to kids in school, this is the origin of it. This is when all of these, and it's like, you know, like, I don't mind gender bending stuff. I like androgyny. I like that sort of stuff. But like, when you play it back and you acknowledge the ramifications of it, you're like, oh shit.
I am interested in the ways in which the Germs, their iconography, and their music allowed a kind of punk rock commons, a being with, in which various disaffected antisocial actants found networks of affiliation and belonging that allowed them to think and act otherwise together in a social field that was most interested in dismantling their desire for different relations within the social. Crash had a fantasy about a Germs burn, which was a unique ritual that imagined a certain futurity through the act of burning a circle onto the flesh of the Germs devotee with a cigarette. The afterlife of Crash's ritualistic scarring is the stuff of punk rock legend. Figures like Crash, Davis, and Alice Bagg paved the way for the queercore movement. Queercore is a punk movement that took place in the 80s and 90s in the midst of the AIDS crisis, trans erasure.
Queercore. Okay, so queercore took place in the 80s and the 90s. Okay. Tracking. We need to look that up.
And Bowers versus Hardwick, when queer people and punk began to create their own spaces that catered to the needs of queer people who weren't interested in assimilating into mainstream culture.
Yo! This is queer anarcho-communist subculture. Queercore is the queer anarcho-communist subculture that we didn't have a name for. This is it. We fucking found it. We fucking found it. The queen of the damn internet. Goddamn right I'm the queen of the internet. Goddamn right. Hang on. Getting a screenshot of that. Goddamn right I am the queen of the fucking internet. Wow. I got that queercore book thing pulled up, and I think Reagan found that too. Thank you. Wow. Yo. Are you serious? The queercore community was feuding with the normal punk scene? Isn't that funny? Wow. That's actually not a bad idea. You could convert this into Carlincore and have that be the, maybe that'll be the next name of my Substack after I get tired of this Better Discourses thing. Well, I'm just gonna name it Carlincore. That's actually I'm gonna screenshot that to remember that, Rationalist. That was a good idea. Oh shit. Thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate the super chat. Yeah, you didn't know how reliable it was because it was Wikipedia. I mean, Wikipedia gets things right every once in a while. Listen, I fucking love punk music. This is honestly really upsetting to me. This is really upsetting to me on like a deeply personal level. I love punk music. I love punk culture. I love that whole thing. This is deeply, 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 deeply upsetting to me. I'm taking this very personally.
Of queer people who weren't interested in assimilating into mainstream culture. These bands included the likes of Limp Wrist, Pansy Division, Los Crudos, Team Dresch, The Butchies, Fifth Column, Tribe 8, and Excuse 17, Carrie Brownstein's former band before.
But I mean, on the bright side, I was right. I was fucking right. I've been saying for months that I thought that this whole queer punk convergence happened in the 80s and the 90s because that's when all the zines were proliferating, and the zines that were proliferating were far left radical revolutionary socialist propaganda. So on the bright side, I was fucking right about everything. Just with a slight tweak that queer did not co-opt punk. Queer was born out of punk, which is just like, it's a nuance.
Later Kinney. Like their peers in the Riot Girl movement in places like Olympia, Washington, and DC, who brought feminism to the forefront of underground rock, queercore brought explicit queerness to the forefront of punk. The terms queercore and homocore first appeared in the queer punk scene JD's in 1985. The zine was started by G.B. Jones from the influential Toronto queercore band Fifth Column. Bikini Kill frontwoman Kathleen Hanna has even cited the work of Fifth Column as one of Bikini Kill's most formative influences. G.B. Jones became friends with gay filmmaker Bruce LaBruce, and they stayed up all night writing zines and creating a homopunk paradise within its pages.
Zines.
Fifth Column was essentially the decade-older Canadian predecessors of riot girl bands like L7, Huggy Bear, and Bikini Kill. Bands who followed Fifth Column in the queercore movement included the Butchies, Tribe 8, and Team Dresch. One of the biggest queer punk bands was Pansy Division, who collaborated with Steve Albini and also scored an opening slot on Green Day's Dookie Arena tour. So why don't people know about this? The easy answer would be because they were likely sidelined in favor of the bands who borrowed their ideas and got popular off of them. Bowie didn't start upping the ante with his elaborate performance art and stage production until he saw Jane County perform. So you really cannot address the history without addressing the queer communities who were innovating long before the New York Dolls or Bowie. Punk and queerness go hand in hand. They both represent a communal commiseration of outcasts and social pariahs. There's also a sort of nihilism and boundary pushing related to sexuality and anti-conformist ways of thwarting respectability politics and coming together to rebel against assimilation. To quote Jose Esteban Munoz, we should resist the impulse to simply queer an object, phenomenon, or historical moment, and instead attend to it with the understanding of lines of queer genealogical connectivity as something other than tautological. Queerness is not a subtextual or alternative reading of punk. Queerness has always been there, and you really cannot address the culture of punk without acknowledging the queer creators, from musicians to DIY zine makers and writers who helmed the movement. This barely even scratches the surface of how many LGBTQIA musicians have influenced the trajectory of music history. It is not uncommon that queer people end up having to mine our own history. Punk has become commodified, watered down, and straightwashed so much, and that has been happening ever since people like Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood opened up shop. But it shouldn't be any surprise that punk, a culture and a DIY community that catered to people outside the status quo that mainstream society never served, has always been inherently queer. And this new wave of queer punk bands surfacing in the digital age is not a new thing. It is simply part of the reckoning where everyone is collectively recognizing that queerness has, as Alexander Doughty so swiftly put it, been there all along. It is here to stay, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Wow. Well, that was probably one of the most productive videos I've watched in a while. Rationalist, I like better discourses, but feel like it won't make sense to those. Well, you mean that's exactly it. Well, it's kind of a joke right now. It's a joke. It's like, that's why I always say my Substack is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. It's like the name is kind of like immaterial to it. It's my fucking Substack. It's my Substack. So maybe we'll change it to Carlin Core. Maybe we'll do that. But we're gonna play this Better Discourses out thing for a little while. Anyway. Maybe I'll put a header that has both Better Discourses and Carlin Core in it. I don't know. We'll see. That was crazy. Well, yeah. You know, guys, I think that is the perfect note to end on for today. That is like, there's no more revelations that are necessary for right now. That is the big fuck off revelation, which is, I was right. I was right. I was the only person to figure this out with you guys. You guys were all along for the ride for me. But seriously, has anyone else talked about this? Has anyone else talked? Like, I've been talking about this shit for months. Have any of these fucking conservative pundits even come anywhere close to this understanding? Queer was born out of the punk movement in the 70s. There was a feud between the queercore people and the normal punk people in the 80s and the 90s. And all the crazy ideas about fucking gender come from the punk movement and from Judaism. and from fucking Judaism. It's Jewish. They're all probably, all the fucking punk people are probably Jewish. You know what? At least we know what's up, I guess. Yeah. I was the new and improved Alex Jones. Indeed, indeed. You know, we learned a lot today. It was happy hour. Cheers, everyone. This is the peanut butter and jelly beer, and it's very, very good, but it has a lot of, like, you know, peanut butter and jelly things in it. But it's very good. Cheers to everyone. Yo. I was right. But, you know, punk is awesome, man. Listen, this is not going to kill my love of punk. I love punk culture. I love punk theatrics. I love punk energy. I love punk music. I love all that stuff. We will not let this ruin punk for us. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. All right? You don't do that. Anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap up the stream, but if you want to check out the latest thing I've written, which is actually really interesting, head over to the Red Menace Collective. That is redmenacecollective.substack.com. You can also find it by going to redmenacecollective.com. This is a site where I am posting the drafts of my upcoming books before they become books. I kind of started accidentally a new little side project last night where I'm talking about the history of the term racism, and it's really interesting. This is the first chapter in the book. It's about 2,000 words long. This is going to be a little baby book. It's going to be maybe about 10,000 words, give or take. That's just going to track the history and the development of the word racism, and it's actually really fascinating. So you can read this draft chapter called The Invention of Racism before it's published as part of this little mini book that I'm going to be doing by heading over to redmenacecollective.substack.com, signing up for a membership of $10 a month, $100 a year. This is how I fund my writing, guys, so I do really appreciate you supporting that. And as always, the main place that you can support the work I'm doing is not on Twitter. It's by heading over to my main Substack, which is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. While you're there, please make sure you check out the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. This is a new project that I'm starting where we are reading and analyzing the most dystopian, queer, and gender text imaginable. You can actually subscribe to the podcast either by going to the book club link at the top and going into any of the podcast episodes. You will find the podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I want to do a special thank you to the 3 people who've already rated it as a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, subscribe to the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. Give it a 5-star rating. Let people know that you're enjoying it. I would really appreciate it. We've got 3 episodes up already, kind of an introductory episode talking about it. We did Toward the Queerest Insurrection, which is one of the foundational texts of queer anarchism. We talked about polyamory and queer anarchism. And if you want the book list of things that we're reading for this podcast so you can read ahead, look at this document, the dystopian documents queer and gender activists are reading, and this provides you with the whole book list that we're kind of going through. You can see we've already done the first 2, and next we will be getting into Against the Gender Nightmare by Braden, and that's going to be a 2014 document. You can find the link to the document on the Anarchist Library. You can also find a PDF to download, and that way you can read ahead, because this is a long-ass document. It's going to take us a while to analyze this. This is a long-ass document, but we are reading the foundational texts of queer and gender ideology that apparently come out of the fucking punk movement, because I want to understand the development of this, and I think it's important, and no one that I know of has ever actually researched this. So you're welcome. I'll do it. It's fine. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for now. I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m., and we're doing Bitchcraft tomorrow. Bitchcraft in my supporter community at 3 p.m. tomorrow. You can find the link on Substack or on Locals. And I will be back tomorrow at 6 p.m. for Socialism Saturday. Take care, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's just Coach Wins.
how is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.